Okay, so going back to today's lesson, April 15th, for Miss C's Wolf Lake Middle School online digital math class for this course 7 OCPS lessons. We're talking about statistics and we're working on experimental and theoretical probability. So now we're going to go ahead and go into actually doing an experiment, which is really just doing an activity for pretend. Okay, so for pretend, Miss Davis spun the same spinner, the one that we just did a moment ago, and her results that she took are tallied right here below. So we're going to pretend that Miss Davis actually did this spinner, like she actually took a paper clip and started spinning this. Okay, so now how do I know how many times she spun this? I would want to count. Well, you'd have to know how to count tally marks. So this says that each time she hit the stripes, you put a little dash, which means the total number of spins that she did for stripes was a 3. And then when you count the tally marks and how frequently this happened for the whites, it came out to a 4. If you count how many times that the one with dots came up, it came up 2 times in her game. And then if you count how many times the stars came up, then she did, even though there's 2 in this thing, when she was playing the activity, which is doing the experiment, it only came up 1 time. Okay, so you need a grand total. So you need a grand total of the frequency. Grand total of how frequently she played. Okay, so she played 3 plus 4, which is 7, plus 2, 8, 9, plus 1 more, 10. So in total, she did 10 spins. Okay, so that's the grand total. The grand total is going to be your denominator. So you got to get the denominator. So from the 10 tries she did, stripes came out 3 out of 10 because it's a ratio. So you're trying to create a ratio, right? Which is a fraction. Okay, and a ratio that's a fraction means out of. And on the bottom you need all, which is the total. Okay, and we call that the denominator. Which means these times that she's doing the trials, where she actually got the things that happened, those would go on the top as your numerator. So those are like what happens. So what happened for the stripes? The stripes came up 3 times. What happened for the white? It came up 4 times. So this is actually what happened. Okay, so the numerator is actually what happens, and the denominator is what the whole total of all the activities were. Okay, so in class, I had some of the students trying on creating the fraction. So on this one, you would put that there were 2 times that the dots showed up out of the 10 times she did the activity and did the spinning. She spun it 10 times. And for the stars, it came out 1 out of 10. Now, earlier I told you guys sometimes we reduce. So there's 2 that could be reduced. The 4/10 could be reduced and the 2/10 can be reduced if you divide by the GCF of a 2. This fraction would come out to 2/5, and this fraction would come out to 1/5. But on this one, doing the reducing could be confusing for some. So we could leave it as this, as your choices. If you want to make sure that you're okay, then if you added up the numerators, 3 plus 4 is 7, 8, 9, 10. It means that you had 10 tries accounted for out of the 10 times you did the spinner. And 10 divided by 10 is 1 whole game. Probability is always between 0 and 1. So the probability of hitting the stripes was 3/10. Probability of hitting the whites was 4/10. Probability of the dots was 2/10. Probability of the stars was 1/10. In all, the entire game was 1 whole game. So the probability for the whole thing is, obviously you'll hit any one of these 100% of the time. Something's going to have to land. Unless you're one of those unlucky people where the marker actually lands on the line and you don't know if it's one or the other. But that's just because your spinner's sticky, and you probably need to fix that. All right, so that was all on that sample. Let me see if I can make sure that you can see the whole screen. I'm gonna reduce it a little bit. Okay, so that was the activity for the PowerPoint presentation on understanding how to tally up your marks for the frequency of how many times the probability of each individual thing on the spinner will show. And when you calculate the fractions, we can get a general idea that white came up more often. Stripes was the second most likely to come up, which you wouldn't guess if you were just looking at it from the picture, because there's only one section that has stripes. But when she actually played the game, stripes came up more often. Hope this helps. Thanks.